How specifically do you help partner banks provide those guarantees?
This is exactly where we are stepping in by providing our guarantee to a foreign commercial bank.
I think a lot of this is working through digitalization and interoperable standards and language and actually platforms.
Welcome to Trade Finance Talks, your go-to trade, treasury and payments podcast, brought to you by TFG. I'm Dipesh Patel, editor at Trade Finance Global. Today we're in Yerevan for the 2024 EBRD TFP Information Session and Award Ceremony at the 33rd EBRD Annual Meeting and Business Forum. Now, international trade can be quite intimidating for many companies trying to break into the industry. We have extensive regulation and documentary processes. It can really seem quite overwhelming, especially when operating in unfamiliar regions, developing and emerging markets. That's why organizations like EBRD, with their trade facilitation programs, are so important for new entrants into international trade. I'm really happy to introduce Marco Nindl, Associate Director for the Trade Facilitation Program of EBRD. I'm also delighted to be joined by Sean Edwards, Chair of ITFA and Special Advisor to the Global Trade Finance Department at SMBC. Welcome to Trade Finance Talks.
Thank you very much, Dipesh. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you also for coming to the EBRD's annual meeting in Yerevan, and I'm very happy to have this chat with you.
Thank you, and first time here in Armenia. Quick introduction, can you talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what exactly you do within the Trade Facilitation Program? And I think it would be good just to give an overview of what the TFP is and does for the market.
With pleasure. So my name is Marco Nindl. I work for the EBRD's Trade Facilitation Program. I've been with the team for a little more than 15 years. Before that, I worked for the Austrian Export Credit Agency, and then I worked for an Austrian bank in New York. Then I joined the team. Over the years, I have been in almost all EBRD's countries of operation, building up the businesses, continuing the businesses. I mean, in essence, what we do is that we provide guarantees to foreign commercial banks on behalf of our partner banks in our EBRD's countries of operation. And we take the political and commercial payment risk for these partner banks. On top of that, of course, we also provide trade finance loans, and we have a very big agenda on technical assistance, where we work together with our partner banks in order to promote export and import business, particularly, of course, also in the smaller sized economies for those who don't necessarily have access to trade finance as much as our larger economies.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about those trade finance loans. How specifically do you help partner banks provide those guarantees? And why do they need EBRD's support? Why can't the market support those banks?
I think the question is twofold. Foreign commercial banks have a certain risk appetite on our countries of operation where we invest. So it's either on the political side or on the commercial payment side. You might have a country which is, for example, going through economic crisis, where foreign commercial banks, because of their risk-taking capacity, are not able to provide the support for their international business. This is exactly where we are stepping in by providing our guarantee to a foreign commercial bank and taking off the risk, so to say, on behalf of our partner banks in our countries of operation. Or in addition to that, we often also engage with new players in the trade finance market, which are not used potentially to international trade finance business. And this is where we are also able to bridge here the connectivity to a larger bank, let's say in Western Europe or around the globe, by assessing and providing the guarantee here on behalf, let's say, of a smaller partner bank which just joined our trade facilitation program recently.
Thank you very much. So here we are in Armenia, lots of relatively smaller partner banks in comparison to the quote-unquote larger Western banks. How can EBRD's trade facilitation program actually, in the end, support some of those smaller companies, those SMEs in countries like Armenia?
What we do is, I think, in essence, the trade facilitation program is a bank-to-bank program, right? So we are in the background by providing a guarantee on behalf of our partner bank, the issuing bank, to a confirming bank. But at the end of the day, it's a real trade going on. So there's always an exporter and an importer. And these exporters and importers profit indirectly from the guarantee in the background of the EBRD, which is providing it to the confirming bank, let's say in this case outside of Armenia. I think Armenia generally is a success story because when we started our activities in Armenia around, a little bit more than 20 years ago, trade finance business, I wouldn't call it underdeveloped, it was just not existent, right? Banks were focusing on cash loans, and with our partner banks, the very first ones who we engaged with, we set up trade finance departments in these partner banks. For example, we sent in consultants, we worked together with them, setting up the trade finance departments. And over the years, Armenia became one of the most active, countries and their partner banks in our program. We have done thousands of transactions so far in Armenia, supporting local companies in their export and import business. So a real success story, and that's why we're very happy to be here at the annual meeting in Yerevan, because as I said, it's one of the success stories in the TFP as well.
Thank you very much. And I guess now taking a step zoomed out, I guess this really helps enhance the export strategies and helps countries like Armenia boost their export competitiveness due to some of the effective policy strategies. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. What we do in the TFP, it's providing guarantees on behalf of our partner banks. But in addition to that, and this is not only the TFP, which provides technical assistance also to partner banks, but the EBRD has a very special program, we call it a Small Business Advisory Program, where we have very specific consultants supporting local companies in providing them getting ready for their export business. So if there is a company being interested, for example, in exploring new markets, we as the EBRD are able to provide that kind of service, bringing them up to speed, let's say, with international business, getting certificates, including marketing for, let's say, the foreign market abroad as well. So we had some very good success stories also in Armenia. Of course, not only Armenia, but many countries, neighboring countries, where the EBRD actually provided special advisory service to hundreds of companies, which then went global, so to say.
Hey, enjoying this podcast? Hit that follow button for more. Done? Let's get back to it. And Sean, taking an ITFA view on this, how can organizations like ITFA actually help companies and banks in developing and emerging markets really help shape and grow their trade finance departments and ultimately help some of those smaller companies?
So I think EBRD are doing is amazing with the help of governments. And I just had a lot of luck to be on a panel moderated by Marco with some representatives from the Armenian government. And we were talking the same language, which is a good thing. I think in ITFA, what we look at really is the private sector solution. So building the network. And that's a network, of course, primarily private, but working with multilaterals like EBRD and IFC and World Bank and ADB and so on. But it's about creating, often there is a private solution or there's a private appetite for risk. So as a forum, a convener, that's the first thing that we do. And that's why the events, I think, are so well attended. But then what are we doing to actually build something that enables those companies to speak the same language, as I was privileged to be told I was by the representative of the Armenian government. I think a lot of this is working through digitalization and interoperable standards and language and actually platforms that we're commercializing through ITFA. So on the digitalization agenda, I'm very keen on promoting at the moment, which I was speaking about, is marrying the physical and the financial supply chain and actually being able to have a seamless end-to-end process from the physical to the finance on the same platform or using the same type of digital instruments. And that is happening at small scale. That's really what we want to push. So it's the private solution. Interestingly, on a panel that I moderated with a representative from ASEAN, they said, yes, we want capacity building. We're going to capacity build your solution, the private market solution. And in a way, I can see why he was saying that. Often government-imposed solutions don't work very well. They don't understand the market, or they're just not adapted to the needs of the participants. So getting something first of all that works and then saying this is what you should be using, I think is a good way to go. So that's really our role. I think we represent really the private side of the formula, but working very much with multilaterals and with governments, as you know, Deepesh, on digitalization, working with the Law Commission in the UK, widely now with the Commonwealth as well, to spread digitalization, electronic trade document laws around the world.
Thank you very much, Sean. And we'll rewind a little bit and go back to that technical assistance and advocacy. And Marco, I want to come to you on that. How does this technical assistance work? How are you seeing benefits and how is it really driving change and impact?
I think if we talk really on the technical assistance side for export competitiveness of a country, the EBRD provides training to government representatives from countries of operation in economic diplomacy to promote their countries and raise awareness of market opportunities. We work together with the policymakers in countries of operation which are interested in increasing their export competitiveness from a legal perspective, from an infrastructural perspective, from a wider perspective, as Sean mentioned also. Importantly is to mention, of course, that the digital solutions have to be in place now. So the real infrastructure, and we discussed on the panel, as Sean mentioned before, which I moderated also together with the Deputy Minister of Economy here in Armenia. We see that countries like Armenia are really setting up their infrastructure for companies to be able to export, educate the companies, providing the legal framework, providing the infrastructural surrounding and infrastructure in terms of being able then for the local companies to export. And this is where the EBRD is stepping in by providing here the technical assistance on top of it. It's not only what we do in the trade facilitation program, but really the EBRD as such with our policy people in the bank. Yeah, and the great cooperation we have with a lot of policymakers in Armenia, for example, or in the whole region.
Thank you very much, Marco. And final question to Sean. What are the biggest levers, and you've mentioned digitalization, you've mentioned regulation and various other initiatives. What are the biggest levers we can really pull right now to close the trade finance gap, which just keeps on increasing?
Part of it is working with governments and some regulators to actually understand and have a beneficial environment for trade finance. I mean, that's certainly one thing. But I always find that working with authorities, if you like, can be very slow and frustrating. It's interesting, the legal digitalization initiatives or efforts, which I've been heavily involved because my day job is still, some tell me, as I'm still a lawyer. That's been actually a sort of semi-public, semi-private initiative, actually. And it's been pushed by a lot of the trade associations, ourselves, but also, especially as well, ICC. And we've been pushing, legal reform across the world now with the Commonwealth. The way they listened to us actually in the UK was very heartening. That's a bit of a model. But to get back to what I was saying earlier, it's also about proving the right commercial case. So we know there's been failure of a couple of platforms recently, but actually the platforms that are left are extremely viable. The whole ecosystem that we've created with a number of different digital solution providers is very viable. I would say wake up, smell the coffee, get on with it. That is actually using what private industry is providing is already within our grasp, put it that way. It's already within our grasp. We haven't grasped it yet because people don't want to change. They don't want to pay for new systems. There needs to be a little bit more gumption, but I think it is slowly beginning to dawn.
Thank you very much. Some great examples of public-private partnerships there to really address the widening trade finance gap, and also some great discussions around the importance of multilateral trade facilitation programs in helping partner banks in emerging and developing markets. That was Sean Edwards, Chairman of ITFA, and Marco Nindel, Associate Director of the EBRD's Trade Facilitation Programme. Thank you both for joining us.